All right, hey, welcome to Holy Monday. And each day of Holy Week, there's a different text that you can focus in on. And so today, the text that we're focusing in on is John chapter 12, verses 1 through 8. And if you don't have the Bible memorized, I don't blame you. It's this story where Mary anoints Jesus' feet with oil. And what you have to understand about this story before we dig into just a few verses of it is that Mary is the sister of Lazarus. And so Martha and Mary and Lazarus were a family. And in chapter 11, Lazarus was dead for 4 days. 4 days. And they were mourning his death. And at the fourth day, it was like there's no more hope. And all of a sudden, Jesus comes in and he raises Lazarus from the dead. And so not only is now hope restored in this family, not only is this brother back and alive, but there is a huge celebration. And so it says that 6 days before the Passover, Jesus came to Bethany where Lazarus was, whom Jesus had raised from the dead. And so they gave a dinner for him there. Martha served, and Lazarus was one of those reclining with him at the table. And so Martha, you probably heard in earlier Gospels, one of her love languages is just serving, right? Almost to a fault. But she's like, man, you just saved my brother. I want to serve you this meal. But Mary, she goes over to Jesus, and it says she took a pound of expensive ointment, and she made a pure nard, and she anointed the feet of Jesus and wiped his feet with her hair. Now what is she doing here? Mary is overcome by the grace of Jesus in the life of their family. And so she wants to find a way to just express to Jesus her gratitude for everything that he's done for their family. And so she does this washing of Jesus' feet, which we talk about in other spots as something that only a servant would do. But she said, I just want to be able to do this for Jesus. But it's interesting because, in the midst of this beautiful scene where she's trying to have this expression of, thank you so much for what you've done for me, Jesus, in comes the antagonist, and it's Judas. And Judas Iscariot, it says, one of his disciples, who was about to betray him, that's Jesus, said, why was this ointment not sold for 300 denarii and given to the poor? Now, 300 denarii would have been a ton of money. And he said, this is not because he cared for the poor, but because he was a thief. And having charge of the money bag, he used to help himself to what was put into it. So you can almost imagine that scene where Mary is doing this thing because she wants to just thank God for this extravagant grace that she's shown Jesus and that Jesus has shown her family. And here's Judas saying, oh, why did you do it that way? You should have done it this way. And I think a lot of times we get that moment where we want to do something in response to the great things that God has done for us. But the things that stop us is that antagonistic voice. The thought that somebody is not going to like what we're doing, and maybe they're going to have a negative reaction to it. Well, what's really interesting about this story that kind of popped out to me is that Judas's negative reaction, it comes from a dark place. Even though it's got a religious overtone to it, it comes from a dark place. And more than that, Jesus looks at Judas and he says, leave her alone, so that she may keep it for the day and my burial. For the poor you always have with you, but you do not always have me. And what Jesus was saying to Judas is, it's not for you to condemn her actions. She's doing this because of the great grace that she's experienced from Jesus. And I think that's the really important thing. I think a lot of times we can let somebody's negative reaction or their potential negative reaction stand in the way of the action we want to do to express our gratitude to God. And so today, as you're reflecting on Holy Week, I want to encourage you. We are celebrating a grace that God has given that we can't find anywhere else. We're celebrating the reality this week that Jesus lived for us, he died for us, and then he rose from the grave, giving us a hope that we can't find anywhere else. And that's something that leads your life to want to do acts of gratitude and thanksgiving toward God. And so don't let those acts that you want to do out of gratitude for what God has done for you, don't let somebody's negative reaction stand in the way of those. But rather, do the things that show gratitude to God for what he's done for you. And don't worry about the negative reaction somebody else may have. because you never know where that negative reaction comes from. And you don't want the negative reaction to stand in the way of the actions of gratitude that you want to carry out. I hope you all have a great Holy Week. I'm looking forward to more of these devotions as they come out from different people. And so blessings this Holy Week, and join us for Easter Online.